Ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking about Indian Army's elite para-special forces. How did they come into being? What was the theory? What was the logic behind having special forces battalions in the Indian Army? And where do they stand today? Let's talk about this. Let's go back to the Second World War. Legend has it that a peculiar case of a maverick British Army officer was brought to the notice of Field Marshal Montgomery. During the Second World War, Monty, as he was known, saw the file and smiled. Mad, quite mad, he said. This officer was of Scottish descent, and that to many seemed like explanation enough. The matter ended there. David Stirling was mad, quite mad, and from this madness, or genius, there being marginal difference between the two, sprung the idea of a small group of men, vehicle mounted, who would drive into the desert, shooting up German aircraft while they were parked in the airfield. The Second World War was raging and the ideas were in short supply. Claude Auchinleck, then Commander-in-Chief of the British Forces, blessed this mad enterprise. A small unit was born. It created merry hell for the Germans. Stirling would appear in the airfields, riding jeeps, shoot up as many aircraft as he and his men possibly could, and then vanish. On a warm July night of 1942, his team drove 18 jeeps to the Sidi Hanish airstrip in Egypt and destroyed 37 aircraft, all in one night. Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox, called him the Phantom Major. The legend grew. David Stirling was the father of the elite SAS, or the Special Air Force, and the SAS is the father of modern special forces. In the world of motion picture-driven testosterone-fueled special forces narratives, people throw about names like SEAL Team and Delta Force. Not many realize that in many ways, when it comes to good old killing, there is still no one better than the SAS. In public imagination, SAS loses out, one of the many disadvantages of not being from the Hollywood country. Lieutenant Colonel Meg Singh was an Indian Army officer who was once court-martialed and demoted to the rank of major. After successful raids into Pakistan in September of 1965, he was again promoted to the rank of Lieutenant Colonel. Originally from 3rd Battalion Brigade of the Guards, he strongly believed that a small group of men, highly trained, motivated and equipped, could create absolute havoc inside enemy territory. He believed in this theory so much that he walked up to the legendary Lieutenant General Harbaksh Singh and presented him with this proposal. Soon, Lieutenant General Harbaksh Singh also believed. Since the force was ad hoc, it was named after its founder, Lieutenant Colonel Meg Singh. It was called Meghdoot Force, not to be confused with Operation Meghdoot of the Siachen Glacier. After all, Siachen Glacier operation happened in 1984, and here we are talking about 1965. So the Meghdoot Force was created. After the war, the government was so impressed with the performance of this ad hoc unit, Lieutenant Colonel Meg Singh was directed to raise a special mission unit. On 1st July 1966, 9th Battalion Commando was raised in Gwalior. In June 1967, 9th Battalion Commando was split into two and 10th Battalion Commando was raised. In 1969, both these units were redesignated as 9 Para Commando and 10 Para Commando. 1978 saw another addition to the Roll of Honor. 1 Para Punjab was converted to 1 Para Commando. As the Para Commando battalions grew in stature, they grew in numbers. Today, Army Special Forces stand at 9 battalions strong. 1 Para, 2 Para, 3, 4, 9, 10, 11, 12 and 21 Para SF complete this pantheon of devils. Para SF battalions operate in the shadows. Very rarely do we hear their names mentioned in the media unless the government specifically wants to drive home a message, like in the case of the surgical strikes. Para Special Forces are the best of the Indian Army. They're truly unique. Each man is selected because he fits a certain groove that the unit has created and nurtured over a period of decades. When officers undergo probation, they do so with other ranks. There is no difference during probation between officer and soldier. They shed the same blood in the same mud, as the Marines would say. When an officer is selected and less than 5% make it, everyone has a say, including the NCOs and the Jawans. In Para SF, the men have a right to choose who will lead them. If an NCO who is already in Para SF and is part of the team conducting the probation feels that the officer who is under probation does not fit into the unit, he can voice his opinion, and his opinion will be honored and respected. The officer will be sent back to his parent unit. Very few are worthy of the Balidan badge. Why is the Para SF different? in the entire army hierarchy, simply because they operate in small teams and officers and men spend days on end in operations, cheek by jowl. There is no space for ceremony or rank. Para-SF units are also unique in that the NCO, the non-commissioned officer, is an independent leader. He leads a squad of 5+1 and can direct and lead an operation by himself. He is professionally competent to manage the fog of war. Special forces seek officer-like qualities in NCOs, qualities like leadership, initiative, operational integrity, and commitment, to name a few. But this is not about how good the Para-SF is. It is about how badly they're equipped and used. Unfortunately, our own understanding of our special forces capabilities is limited. Many a time, Para-SF is used in a tactical role. They are strategic assets. They should not and cannot be used tactically. You cannot have a Para-SF house entry in a CASO, that is a cordon and search operation. That is something that infantry Ghataks must be able to do and can do. Keep Para-SF out of day-to-day counter-insurgency operations. They are the nation's trump card. To use them tactically would be to blunt their edge. We have never nurtured our special forces, and our attitude is like having a katana or a Japanese samurai sword and using it to adorn a wall. Quite frankly, we don't know what to do with them, and many a time, as a result, we use them in day-to-day tactical roles, especially in the Northeast or the Kashmir Valley. Special forces have very little in common with the para-airborne units, except that they are part of the same regiment and jump out of planes. They need to be dehyphenated. In fact, I would go so far as to say that special forces should not be considered a part of the infantry at all. They must be recognized as a separate arm of the Indian Army, like the infantry, armored corps, or artillery. In the current scenario, and with the Special Forces Command now forming up, Para-SF battalions clubbed together as a singular operation entity must be headed by a Major General equivalent rank officer who would have direct reporting to the CDS. Another issue that plagues the Indian Army Special Forces is how badly they are equipped, the lack of weapons and equipment. I could have understood this if we did not have funds. We do, and we don't know how to use those funds. Para-SF still uses the good old Maruti Gypsy. They use the 7.62mm Galil sniper rifle that cannot kill beyond 800 to 1000 meters. A few new sniper rifles have come in, but that is too late, and the amount and the numbers too few. They have most of their kit supplied by the Ordnance Factory Board. Their main weapon is the TAR-21 Tavor, a 5.56mm Israeli assault rifle. Now the Tavor is a fine weapon, except that it does not have the punch of a 7.62mm weapon. And that punch is sorely needed. They need good anti-material rifles and long-range sniper rifles. They need world-class communication equipment, best-in-class mini-subs, and underwater demolition technology must be put in their hands. In a sense, they need the technology of tomorrow. We need to free the Para-SF from the mind-bending bureaucracy of the Defense Ministry. They need to be able to purchase their own weapons at short notice. It should not take 2 years for a new rifle to be inducted. It should take 2 months for the first lot to be inducted. A Para-SF unit should be able to order weapons and equipment off the shelf. They should be using modified Land Rovers for movement and other SUVs and not Maruti Gypsies. The list is long, but know this. If you want our Para-SF to perform like the SAS or SEAL Team 6, you have to treat them like that. Forget about dedicated satellites and combat drones. I am asking for the basics. Special forces should ideally work in very close coordination with RAW. If they are indeed to be truly successful, the lines between special ops and intelligence must be blurred. SAS works hand in glove with MI6, and SEAL teams work very, very closely with the CIA. In India, we are unfortunately busy with bigger things like turf wars. While they do go for foreign training, it must be substantially ramped up. Para-SF must train regularly with the US Army Special Forces, Navy SEALs, Sariyat Matkal, and with the granddaddy of them all, the SAS. The Spetsnaz, or the Russian Special Forces, are again gaining momentum after a few decades of flux. We could learn from them and also teach them a trick or two. Para-SF needs dedicated airlift capability and helicopters on standby. The Indian Air Force has the capability. All we need is better coordination. The list is long and perhaps endless, because new technology keeps entering the battle space. If we do this much, India will have a tremendously potent weapon in its hands. It will be like the legendary Brahmastra from Hindu mythology. All the Prime Minister of India will have to do is pick up the phone and approve a mission. And Indians will no longer ask questions like, why can't we take out Hafiz Saeed and Dawood Ibrahim? And the answer to the question, can we get Kulbhushan Jadhav back, will then have been answered. Special forces can plan and execute at a ghostly pace. It will not be long before a senior general from the Indian Army looks at the plan and smiling gently to himself says, mad, quite mad. Thank you very much for joining me. I'll come back in a few days with another episode of Blitzkrieg. Till then, from me and my team, Jai Hind.